Hello lovely people, it's Nicola back in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room. I had to clear off my armchair a little bit because my son still hasn't made his curtains for his bedroom. So there was a pile of fabric on here, so I moved it because I needed to reclaim my armchair. How are you? I hope you're enjoying your May. It's absolutely beautiful today. Currently 16 outside, but I'm sure it's going to be at least 20 or more by the afternoon, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to put my swimsuit on and go and lie outside in the sun for a little bit. Last weekend I had like 5 days off in a row, which was awesome. So I think about 3 of those days I did a little bit of sunbathing, and it just makes me feel so well. And yeah, my body just soaks up all those rays after a Canadian winter. But yeah, British Columbia is warming up nicely, not too fast, thankfully, because it can get really hot here in the summer. So let's see what's been happening. I only had 2 shifts this week, one of which though was 8.5 hours. I never have an 8.5 hour shift. I think my boss didn't realize that she had missed correcting my shifts, because I think the computer auto-populates my schedule, and everybody else is at work, of course. And then she usually goes through and fixes things. And yeah, I was there from 9:45 to 6:15. My feet did okay. I do have some plantar fasciitis in my right foot, but I've gone back to the sketches and the insoles. If you were with me at the beginning of the year, I had decided to try out Katie Bowman's advice on getting rid of your plantar fasciitis by going for barefoot shoes or no shoes at all, doing certain exercises, wearing toe socks if you can to spread your toes out. Last week, I had a shift that was quite long, and my shoes, obviously no cushioning at all in them, and even the left foot was complaining by the end of that shift. And I thought, okay, I've given it a few months, and I'm going back to the cushiony things now. So that's enough of that. I'm really glad that I didn't buy the $180 whatever they were called. I don't know. There was a brand of zero rise shoes that I looked at in my local running shop, and they were $180, and they felt really nice on when I tried them on. But I'm really glad I didn't buy them now, because I'd have been regretting that expenditure at this point. I bought some less expensive ones from Amazon that were $60. And then I also got a cheapy pair from Walmart that were, I don't know, $20. But I've given up with that experiment now. We're going back to the good old insoles, because I'm fed up with my feet hurting. Anyway, that was a digression. So what have I been doing this week apart from working? I have to say, I was absolutely gobsmacked about the amount of views I got on my Butterick sewing the top video. I put it up there. I was sewing for about 3.5 hours, and I managed to condense the video down to about an hour, just under an hour. I didn't want to bore people. And I thought, oh, probably no one will watch this. My God, 1,000 views. I don't know what I did, but I guess it was appreciated. So yeah, I'm really happy that you guys enjoyed that, because I was blown away by that. Absolutely blown away. So I do have plans to make that top again. I will probably do it in a more fun print, something more wacky, I think. And yeah, as I think it was Jerry suggested, why didn't I use my serger? Well, I think next time I will use the serger, at least for the neatening of the seams. I may use it for the main seams to sew and finish, but for the sleeves, I may resort to the sewing machine and then just finish off with a serger. And I know I made a mistake in there. Somebody else commented that, I shouldn't have stay stitched the armholes, but that's because I went on to reading view AB instead of view C. So I made a mistake in there. But hey, life's all about making mistakes and learning from them, isn't it? In some cases more than others. I did quite a lot of reading this week. What did I read? I almost finished 2 books. I read this one. It's called Lies He Told Me by James Patterson and David Ellis, which is a good beach read, I would say. It's just your basic novel. I enjoyed it. There were quite a few twists in the tale. Like, it wasn't predictable as predictable as I thought it would be. And yeah, it'd be a great one to pick up if you're going to the beach or if you're on vacation or something. And the beauty of this one is it's large print. Oh, at my age, I love large print books. When I found that at the library, I was like, yes, that's for me. And then the other one I have almost finished is Christina Clancy, Shoulder Season, about a woman who has been looking. She's a young woman. She's only about 19 at the beginning of the book, and she's been looking after her mum for years because her mum was really sick. And when her mum dies, she finds out that there's a Playboy resort not far from her town, which is hiring, and she gets hired, and it goes from there. So it's a bit of a coming of age or finding yourself type of story. I lay on my couch reading last night. My eyes were drooping at 9 o'clock. I still read till 11:30. And I didn't quite finish. By the time I got to 11:30, I was fried. I thought, okay, I can wait to see how this ends till tomorrow. But that was good. There's another book I'm really enjoying right now. It's a small one. I'm going to have to tell you about it when I've finished it. It's upstairs. It's a non-fiction, and it's all about finding the beauty, it's called The Beauty That Remains, I think, and it's by a rabbi, Steve Leder, Leder. And it's about dealing with, like, when someone you love passes away, and also confronting your own mortality when people who you love die. It's awesome. It's brought me to tears at least a couple of times. So I'll talk more about that when I'm finished it, but definitely recommend it. The other book I want to tell you about, it's a bit of a plug for my sister. A few years ago, actually, I wonder what year that was. What year did this come out? Hold on a minute. 2019, before the old pandemic debacle. In 2019, my sister published a book. It was spurred on by her trips to India, and she volunteered at an animal sanctuary while she was there. What's the name of it? Can't remember what the name of it was now. So she wrote this book, and the title of it is Ahimsa. And in Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain tradition, it means respect for all living things and avoidance of violence towards others. The byline is a personal journey via an animal sanctuary in India to veganism. And she wrote it under a pen name, so Caroline Earle is not her real name. But this is the book. It's available on Amazon, I think. Yeah, and obviously I've read it and I have a copy of my own. But what I really liked about the part at the back, acknowledgements. Okay, this is in the acknowledgements. She said, to my sister Nicola, you were right all along. Damn. Best line in the whole book. So if you're interested in knowing or more about that or reading the book, it's available. She lives in the UK, obviously, so they've definitely got it on the Amazon UK. As for the rest of the world, I don't know. I haven't checked. But I just had to give her a little bit of a plug. There's been a couple of miscellaneous things happening around here this week. When I did yet another blitz in my sewing room, I went through a whole ton of stuff. I had so much stuff under my desk here where my yarn cubbies live above here. Underneath was a disaster. And I pulled out a whole bunch of stuff, and it included a whole bunch of things that I had made, and I was hanging on to because I didn't know what I was going to do with them. Was I going to use them? Was I going to sell them, give them away, whatever? And then also there was a bunch of stuff on my bookshelves over here. Again, some finished items that I wasn't sure about keeping and all that sort of thing. So I've made myself a box here behind the door of a gift and thrift pile. And I also found 2 items which I had completely forgotten about and I knew needed fixing. So a long time ago, can't remember when, I made this really cute little backpack. It was a kind of baby lamb type fleece. No, it was sort of a woolly fleece, like almost like a sheep's fleece, but obviously synthetic, in a bubblegum pink. And I had this remnant and I decided to use it to make a fun backpack with it. And I can't show it to you now because it's gone. It's cut up now. I had to cut it up. When I made it, I gave it a fleece lining with some zippered pockets, and I put these curtain grommets in. Curtain grommets are fantastic because you don't need any special tools. You just cut the hole and you snap them in. The trouble with using them with stretch fabric is that the fabric was pulling out. As I was using the backpack, the fabric was pulling out. I should have stabilized the holes, maybe with some stitching, before I put the grommets on. And I did try and do that multiple times as things were pulling out of place, but I just gave up in the end. The other downside to that fabric is it was picking up every single little bit of fluff and lint and thread and everything, and it looked grubby really fast, so I was a bit disappointed about that. So I had just hung it with all my other bags that I'm keeping on the back of my sewing room door over there. And so when I found it, I thought, okay, time to do something with this. So I cut the pink fleecy fabric off and yeah, I tossed it. It wasn't good for anything. And you just see if I can find a little bit of it. No, I've thrown it out already. It's gone. So I threw that bit out and it wasn't salvageable. The inside, so this is what the lining looked like. It's a really fun remnant of a really pretty fleece with flowers on it in pink, orange and yellow. So this used to be the inside of the bag. It had these big zippered pockets in. And of course the zippered pockets are not particularly good looking because fleece stretches and it's not ideal. But I didn't do a bad job. It's just a little bit rough. So what I ended up doing the other day, I turned this right side out, obviously, because it's now the outer and not the lining. I lined it with this fleece, which I had left over from the pig onesie that I made last year. And then I just added one snap to close it up. I could have added more snaps across the top, but not knowing what this is going to be used for, I didn't want to go using lots of cam snaps and just feeling like I was wasting them. So this is a lovely cushy bag for something. I'm just not sure what yet. but it's a lot more usable now than it was before. Yes, I had to get quite creative. When I was working at Fabricland, I brought home a lot of remnants. Sometimes I got them for cheap, obviously, because remnants were marked down. I think it's 70% off when they were rolled up. They were always under a meter or a meter or less. They were rolled up at 70% off. So when you've only got a certain amount of fabric, you have to be creative about how you use it. And sometimes I got them free because it might have been a part of the bolt that had a hole in it or some writing on it or something, like a big Sharpie thing. And so, yeah, I just brought home the stuff that would have ended up in the bin. And yeah, it's good because when you're limited like that, it makes you more creative, I think. So that's what I did with that thing. The other bag I had made was this denim backpacky type thing. So it looks kind of complicated because it looks triangular, but actually it was very simple to construct. I had seen this idea on YouTube. A couple of people had made it. What's his name? There's this guy called, I think he's Proper Fit Clothing or Proper Fit something. And he had made quite a nice version of a triangular backpack. But there was something, I don't know, about his method that confused me, or I decided, of course, I could do it better. You know how you do, right? Anyway, all you really need to do is you make a bag the usual way, except instead of doing the zipper here and the bottom of the bag here, you just do the zipper this way and the bottom of the bag this way. So they go perpendicular to each other, and so it looks more complicated than it is. And I use this nice chunky nylon zipper on it and a rather fun lining with dots on. Now the one thing is, obviously when I'm carrying this, I want to have the zipper closing upwards so that if I only want to open it part way, I can reach in from the top without things falling out from the bottom. And I did put pockets in it, but if I had thought a little harder about it, I would have put the pockets at an angle, because when you're carrying the bag, the pockets are kind of diagonal. So there is a risk of things falling out of them. I put D-rings on every single corner. So it has D-rings on the top two corners. It has D-rings on the bottom two corners. And I also put a little bit of scrap vinyl on there just as a little decoration, although when you're carrying the bag, you can't really see it. It tucks away at the bottom there. So the plan with this was to wear it as a backpack, but also to give me options to carry it or wear it a different way. So I made 2 webbing straps with all the hardware, the swivel hooks, the sliders, and all that. Well, obviously I put quite a bit in it when I first started using it. It's a big bag. You'd think you'd fit a lot in it. The trouble was the swivel hooks I used weren't adequate. There was one set of hardware I got that had 1-inch sliders, 1-inch D-rings, 1-inch swivel hooks. And I'm really disappointed to say that the swivel hooks were not as sturdy as the rest of the hardware. In fact, they were quite flimsy. And so on one of the straps, the swivel hooks sheared off right through here. This top part of the swivel hook just snapped off completely. I was really disappointed about that. That's never happened to me before. So, of course, this bag hung around for probably, or at least a couple of years, till I finally did something with it this week. I trimmed off one end. So one of the ends that was sewn, I cut it off, took the swivel hooks off it, put 2 new swivel hooks on, and then re-sewed it. It's the same kind of swivel hook. Potentially I could have the same problem again. I'll just have to be really careful if I use this not to overload it. because I do like it. It was a good idea. Just a shame about the swivel hooks. Would I make one of those again? Nope. But it was a fun way to use up some denim and some quilt cotton and try out something different. Again, another learning opportunity. I'm not sure what inspired me to do this, but I think it was maybe Christine's Home Affairs Facebook page. But on Facebook, I saw someone talking about their cord keepers. So you've probably seen them around, right? If you sew, you've probably seen this idea that you make a fun little wrap for your wires. So if you've got charging cable, or if you've got an extension cable, or your sewing machine cables, you can roll them up and you can wrap something pretty around them with a snap. So I suddenly got into that one day. I didn't know what else I was going to make, but I knew I wanted to sew. You ever get that feeling? And so I made, I think, 6 of them. I made one for my serger cable, my sewing machine cable, my iron, my extension cable, my other sewing machine, and even the wire that holds the, the wire for my ring light. And the one for the ring light is actually really handy, because I always hated how I always unplugged it at the end of it, each use, but the wire would just be separate. And so what I can do now is I can roll up the wire and I can snap this little thing around one of the uprights of the ring light, keeps it all together. So I'll show you what I mean in case you don't have a clue what I'm talking about. It's a really, really simple idea. And all it is a couple of rectangles of fabric. I did interface one of them. So a couple of rectangles of fabric. One is interfaced. I put them right sides together and sewed around them, leaving a turning gap. I did rounded corners on all of them a bit, just for aesthetics. Definitely not necessary. So once you've sewn around and left your turning gap, you trim your corners, turn it right side out, iron it, top stitch it, add snaps. It's that easy. And you just have to change the length depending on what wires you're going to use it for. So I really had fun with that. That was just one of the ones I made. The other one I did, which I was really pleased with actually, because it holds it all together, is my iron one. Look at that. I made the iron one wide enough and long enough to hold the wire against the handle when it's not in use. Not long ago, I bought a whole set of the cam snap type snaps. They're the cheap versions, not the cam versions. And so I have hundreds and hundreds of them in different colors now. So yeah, that was fun. And all I did was use fabrics out of my scrap bag. I did not cut into any new yardage for this. This is the one. This is the one I made for my mechanical Janome. It's a toilet paper fabric. You can imagine that came out around COVID times, right? That's what that was for. There was a whole range of them. I think one of them said, wash your hands. And I think I might have a bit of that still, the toilet paper fabric. And, you know, there was fabric printed with masks and all that nonsense. I'll be glad that's over. Good grief. So yeah, 6 of them. I made a big one for a big extension lead down there on the floor, one for the serger, I think it was 6. And it was just such an easy, quick thing to do. It didn't require too much thought, but was still very satisfying. Another thing I did this week was I finally, because I had been tidying out my sewing room, I found this basket I had made. And I can't show you what it looks like because I've frogged it. But if you go into my projects, Nicolaknits on Ravelry, and if you look up baskets, you'll find a purple one with purple buttons that was made from banana fiber. Now, yeah, it was always floppy. It was always too floppy. If you put stuff in it, obviously it would hold things. But if you took them out and it was empty, it would just go completely flat. Absolutely no structure to it at all. So now it's frogged. This is, it's beautiful. It's beautiful yarn. It's a purple, really deep, rich purple with flecks of other colours, and very overspun in some places, very rustic. And I seem to remember not a great joy to work with. If you ever want to try banana fibre yarn, I don't recommend it particularly. But now I have this ball of yarn, and the purple buttons are back in the stash. And yeah, that was a bit of a step backward as far as using up my stash this year. But I will have to think about what I can make with that instead. Something that makes more sense than something that needs to be actually standing up by itself. Okay, one more little thing to tell you about, and then I'm going to show you the thing I'm most proud of this week. This is my walking crochet project, and I'm about to unravel it here because it doesn't have a stitch marker in it. Oh, and it's attacking me with bits of yarn. I showed you this last vlog. This is my current crochet project. I am just doing a random granny square, like a basic granny with a 3.75mm hook, and I'm using Paintbox Cotton. It's just a DK, and I caked up 4 different colours together just so that I could use them up and get them out stash. Well, this has been my walking project. Although I have to confess, this last little bit here, which is the different colour, I did do on the couch upstairs. There were a couple of times last weekend when, what was it last week, when Mr. Stitches wasn't around, and I thought I better get a walk in because I don't know if he's going to have a chance to come out with me. So I grabbed this and I put them in my Japanese knot bag, which is one of the best things for walking crochet, because you just stick it on your wrist and you thread the yarn out one of the holes and you crochet away. I couldn't tell you what this is going to be. It's getting too big for a dishcloth. I may end up using it as a cute little hand towel in the kitchen. But for now, it's just sitting because I haven't added to it. When I go walking with Mr. Stitches, he walks so much faster than me because his legs are so much longer than mine. So I don't crochet when I'm with him because that would definitely be a bad idea. Plus, I've got him to talk to when I'm walking, whereas I'm on my own. It's nice to have something to do with my hands, apparently. So the big thing I'm pleased about this week is the onesie blanket. I was procrastinating on the onesie blanket because I was so worried that it wouldn't work out. When I got back from holiday a few weeks ago, I brought back a whole ton of pieces cut from my niece's baby's outgrown onesies. So when I was there, she gave me a pile of them. And so before I came home, I grabbed a pair of scissors and I cut the sleeves off and like the snapped leg parts and all that sort of thing. So just left the usable fabric on the fronts and backs and brought them home, and I was agonizing about how I was going to do this blanket. And I tried adding interfacing just as an experiment. I put some SF101 equivalent. I think it's the Fabricland generic version of SF101. So it's a medium weight woven fusible. And I fused it onto the piece of fabric and then trimmed it to a neat rectangle. I made sure it was a multiple of 1/2 inch. It was rounded to the nearest 1/2 inch. So they weren't all going to be random sizes. And it felt good. There was still some drape to it. It looked good. And I asked on one of the vlogs recently what people thought. And I finally just piled in, because I thought, I can't procrastinate any longer on this. I really need to make a decision. So I did. I decided I was going to interface every single piece. So interface them, trim them all, rounded to the nearest ½ inch that I could squeeze out of each piece. There are 2 of the onesies which were that sort of chenille fabric, which I was worried about ironing because they were obviously synthetic. So I was careful to interface from the back with a pressing cloth. There were 2 pieces which have Rudolph type reindeer noses, 3D pom-poms on. So I had to be really careful about pressing around those. So I had to use a pressing cloth on the right side and sort of iron around them as close as possible to the pom-pom without burning it. There was a Tigger one in there which had a plasticky front to it. And then, of course, once I had cut all the pieces out, I had to lay them all out on the floor and move them around so that the colours were fairly well distributed, but also the sizes fit so that I could try and get a rectangle out of it without wasting too much fabric. So let's have a look at it. All this chat, Nicola. Let's just show you what it looks like. I pressed my seam allowances open. I don't normally for a quilt, but I did on this one. So there's the reindeer one I told you about. I wanted to maintain as much of this as possible, so I had to add a couple of bits of fabric to these top corners just so that it made a square or a rectangle. So that's got a bit of patching involved. And then we've got one that says Kisses for Mummy on there. We've got a reindeer one. We've got a few where I've had to add strips of fabric there. I've got, Where's the Party? There's a Paddington one, which I ended up having to use on its side, but that's all right. So what I did is I constructed it in horizontal strips so that it would be easy to sew the strips together in straight lines for the last step. There's another one with a pom-pom on it. Very cute. And there's the Tigger one, which is a bit of a pain to iron because of the synthetic or plasticky content. There's the back of that other reindeer one with the chenille fabric, which I had to be careful about. There's a cute sea creatures one right there. That's the back of the Tigger one, the bright orange. I'm handsome like Daddy. Ha! I'm the cutest. And then there's another one, Mummy's little one, and then a cute little animal one. And another one that says, You Are My World on it. So it's all interfaced with the SF101 equivalent. As I say, all the seams are pressed open to try and minimize the bulk. And I'm really, really, really pleased with this because I was worried that I was going to end up with a really lumpy, messy look. I mean, yeah, the colours don't go particularly well together, but this is what my niece wanted. She wanted a blanket made out of all of these pieces. And that's what she's going to get. I don't think I'm going to add any sort of batting to this. The plan is I have a load of laundry on right now, and I've thrown a piece of cotton in the machine, which is going to be the back. And what I did when I laid all the fabrics out and decided how big to make it, obviously I didn't have that much fabric. It was only going to be a small blanket anyway. But I made sure it was going to fit within the width and length of the 1 meter of quilt cotton that I decided to use for the backing. And I don't think it needs batting. I think with the jersey knit fabric on the front, the interfacing and a cotton quilt backing, I think it's going to be enough. It already feels quite heavy. And I did consider, the first time ever, delegating the quilting to a long armour and taking it to somebody. But the minimum charge is going to be astronomical compared to the size of the quilt. You know, if it was a bed-sized quilt and I was really, really concerned about managing it on my machine, yes, I'd pay. But for such a small quilt, I'm just going to do it myself. One of the things that was bugging me was the fact that my quilting foots, my walking feet, I have 2 walking feet for my Janome, and they've both been misbehaving lately. I'm not sure if it means my machine needs servicing or if the feet just need tossing out and getting a new one, which is annoying because they're expensive. But if ever I am going over a bulky part and it's lower at the back than the front and it tips up, the needle hits the metal instead of going in front of that metal piece into the fabric, and I break needles all the time. And I asked on Facebook if anyone had any advice on that, and a couple of people said, oh, you probably should get your machine serviced. And a few people said other things that weren't relevant to my particular walking feet. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a servicing person and get them to have a look at the machine and the feet. But I'm just going to have to get along and quilt this and be careful with it. Maybe just take care not to break any needles, because, you know, needles are expensive. And I don't have a sewing, actually I say I don't have a fabric store nearby anymore. Did I say that right? I don't have a fabric store nearby anymore. I do work at Michael's. They sell sewing machine needles, but not as wide a range as Fabricland. So yeah, not like I'm not going to run out to Fabricland every 5 minutes when they are a fair drive away now. But hey, I'm just going to do it. So once the washing machine has finished, I'm going to hang my laundry out because I can't bear using the dryer on a nice day like this. And then I'll be able to iron my fabric and get on with that. For now, one more thing to talk about. I saw this amazing idea in this Quilting Arts newsletter magazine. So my friend Annette is an amazing artist. She does all sorts of art, but I love her textile art most of all. And she gave me some of her duplicates of her Quilting Arts magazines. I've had these out from the library before too, and they're very inspiring. So there was a thing I saw in this one. Here it is. It is all about art to go containers. That's what they call them. So this is what it looks like. Let's try and not get the shiny on there. So you see those beautiful little boxes. Sorry, the ring light's reflecting on there pretty badly. So there's a whole article in there about making arty containers in the form of a takeout container, say from a Chinese takeaway. I thought that would be so much fun. So they tell you how they give you some ideas, and they even give you a template. If you don't want to go and get your own takeout container, they give you a template in the magazine, which is quite helpful because what you can do is mark on the template when you're working on it which bits of the fabric you don't want to make too bulky or highly embellished, because they're just going to be folded in at the sides and they're going to be hidden anyway. However, I used my noodle, and yesterday when I was at Bulk Barn, I bought this. It was $1.49. Probably a lot for what it is, but I only wanted the one, and I wasn't going to be cheeky and go and knock on the door of my local Chinese takeout place and say, would you like to give me one of your containers? I think that would be a bit of a nerve, don't you? So Obviously, a lot of you are already familiar with this sort of container, I'm sure. It has the flaps that open that way. Now let's just, yeah, the handle. So the wire handle just pops out of there. So the flaps open that way, the flaps open that way. It's just a flat piece of cardboard that's folded in a nifty way to hold whatever. You know, you don't have to put takeout food in there, right? You could buy this just to give gifts or candies or anything. And so I am going to use this as a template for making something fun. I do like every now and again making some sort of textile art with fabric scraps and things. The only thing I don't have, which I really would like to have, is tulle. But I do have some Wool Warehouse bags. Wool Warehouse, when they mail you yarn, they put them in organza bags. They're always white. Not necessarily sure I want white, but it may work. So I think I might try that. I'm going to use what I've got. I'm going to get some batting and cut it to the shape of this thing, or maybe cut it bigger than this. That's probably the best idea. So batting, lots of scraps, sew them down, layer them like a free motion quilt over the top of the organza so it's all held down beautifully, cut out this shape, and then fold it back into a box shape. And then what you can do is, once you've folded these first flaps in and like done this, you can put a nice little ribbon on the top or something to hold it together on the top. I can't wait to see what that's like. I will probably make a separate video on that, just to have that as a standalone video, purely for making a takeout container bit of art. I can't wait. Yeah, I'm going to have to dig out those organza bags that I've got. I've got at least one that's really big. Hopefully will be large enough. I think that was all I was going to talk to you about for now. I am going to go and see whether the washing machine has finished. And if so, I'm going to hang my laundry in the sunshine. And I'll see you again in a bit. Well, it's slapdash, but then what do you expect from a channel called Stitches and Slapdashery? It came out better than I expected, actually. I started by doing one of the horizontals. I think it was this one. And I did stitching either side of that first seam there, just using the foot as a guide. So I did 2 horizontals, and then I went down that way, and then I did these guys here, and then I did this way, and then did these horizontals. So I do know that it's a good idea to work from the center out with a quilt. and I was keeping my fingers crossed the whole time. And I guess it worked, because the back is actually all right. I didn't see a single fold in the fabric, which is a Christmas miracle. So I'm pleased with that. What I did once I'd finished with the horizontals and verticals is I went around the edge and sewed the layers together. I haven't actually squared it up and trimmed my excess fabric off. So, you know, I said earlier that I made sure that this was going to fit on the backing fabric. Look how close I was here. I was literally on the edge. And the only reason I can think of for that is the fabric shrunk, or shrank. Honey, I shrunk the kids. I guess it's shrunk. So the fabric must have shrunk. And I didn't even put it in the dryer. I just washed it in cold water with my clothes and hung it out on the line to dry in the sunshine, with the right side folded inside so that it wouldn't fade. So it was a squeeze. Little lumpy just there. That Tigger piece is a little bit of a pain. But I think on the whole, my seam allowances ended up where they were supposed to be. And I haven't thought about binding yet. I'm going to have to dig through my fabrics and maybe go with something like this, maybe, like the backing fabric, or I don't know, I like a binding that looks like it frames it. Red in one way would be nice. I don't know though. I suppose if there's a little bit of red plaid in there and a little bit of red Christmassy, then that might work, but I don't know if I've got much in the way of red fabric. So I am going to go and have a little look in the stash. There's a lot of messing around with this, but I feel like I'm making good progress today. I've been moving my cutting mat around here and my ironing pad, but I do like working right under the window here because light is so much better. Of course, it helps that I've got my ring light on as well, so that you guys can see better. So the quilting, as I said, went way better than I expected. It didn't take long at all. And then I trimmed it, and it was just very slightly off being straight on the edges. There was it was like a centimetre out in the middle measurement, top to bottom, than on the edges. So I just did a tiny bit of trimming. Really, that sort of thing isn't going to be too obvious in the final result anyway. And then I had to find some fabric for the binding, which was kind of challenging because a lot of my fabrics are small pieces. They're colours that I love, and I don't love red a lot. So I don't have a lot of red fabrics, but I did think that would have been nice to have had a red binding. I found a grey fabric that had some red and black plaid maple leaves on, which would have been perfect. But did I have enough? No. I'm cutting my binding strips at 3 inches because I plan to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance so that you can't see the stay stitching that I did around the edge of the quilt. Normally I would have gone for like a 2.5 inch strip, but I'm doing 3. I want a fairly wide binding because I think it's going to be fun. And so I needed at least, I think it was 0.3 of a meter, and I only had 0.2 of that fabric. So I went with this one, which was a rather fun fabric. On the selvage it says Gone Glamping. It's got campers and all sorts of stuff on it. And I'm making sure to cut it so that it's not going in line with the pattern, and that there's just going to be a lot of colour. There's going to be a lot going on with it, but you won't see much of it because obviously by the time I've done the binding, you'll probably only see 1/2 inch of it on one side of the quilt. So it'll be colourful and fun. You know, this is for a 1-year-old. How old is he now? He's about 18 months old, almost exactly 18 months old right now. And so by the time he gets his onesies back, made into a blanket, well, babies don't care about what they wear, and they certainly don't remember what they wear, do they? But he'll get his onesies back as a blanket, and he'll just like it if it's colourful and cozy, and something to have as a comfort blanket. It's not huge. The measurement is about 97 centimeters. It's about 36 inches square, approximately. A little over that, 38 maybe. And it's a good size for a stroller or a car seat. So I may well do some hand stitching on this. One thing I dislike about binding is when you've sewn it on and then you turn it to the back and machine it. Quite frequently the machine stitching is in the wrong place. It doesn't catch all the layers. So what I might do is just machine it on the one side, fold it around to the back, and then just enjoy a little bit of hand stitching on it for the last step. It's Friday and the quilt is finished. There's a couple of spots where the stitching I did around the edge before adding the binding is visible, which is a little bit annoying, but I'm not going to unpick it because that would affect the stability of the edge maybe a little bit. I don't know. I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to have things broken lines of stitching in there. Some of my quilting lines started out with no sort of back stitching or anything, so I'm going to hope that they will be okay. It's not the best. Oh, I can see some places where I need to trim some ends here on the back, but it looks great from the front. And I think that the fabric I used is fun, and it'll be enjoyed by its recipient. So it worked out well. Just got a photograph of it outside in the yard on the sunny grass. So I will probably put a picture in here, show you the whole thing just lying out flat because it's hard to see otherwise. But I'm really glad that's finished. Now, Canada Post is supposed to be going on strike again. I believe it's 22nd of May. It's now 15th. I'm not sure. It's a week away, I think. So I think what I need to do is I need to bundle this up and get it sent off ASAP. And hopefully it will get through Canada Post's system and into international mail before the strike starts, assuming it goes ahead. So yeah, I'm glad that's finished. Just looking at a little bit of bulging around that nose. That nose was tricky to work around. That nose, not so much. It's tinier. So that's it for this time, guys. Thanks for being here. And thanks for watching. And thanks for all your lovely comments. And I will see you again really, really soon with something else. Bye for now.